Goosebumps, the creepy kid show based on popular books of the same name. Now as a kid, I loved the hell out of Goosebumps. I would watch episodes repeatedly on VHS, and now as an adult, it's a bit of an obsession. So let's look at 5 disturbingly grim episode endings to Goosebumps the TV show. We're gonna start off with an episode called Let's Get Invisible, which is about 2 brothers who discover a creepy old mirror in their attic. Now this mirror enables you to turn invisible. Now they don't tell anybody about this except a couple of their friends, and they start playing around with the mirror's possibilities. But it turns out the mirror doesn't just enable you to turn invisible, but it also allows you to cross over into a creepy world, a world that we can only call the mirror dimension. Now the mirror dimension is full of exact copies of us, except they're mirrored, so they do everything in reverse to us. And these mirror creatures that inhabit the mirror dimension, they want to possess the world of the living and essentially come out of the mirror. So in the episode, one of their friends actually does get possessed and he becomes all evil. And so the kids end up having to destroy the mirror. Now, this is how the ending of the episode starts to wrap up. You start to think that maybe the kids have destroyed the mirror, their friend who was possessed is now depossessed. It looks here like he's getting sucked into the mirror, but it's actually depossessing him. But the ending of the episode is when it's revealed that the little brother doesn't throw with his right hand anymore. Instead, he's throwing with the opposite hand. And the implication to the end of this episode is that the little brother is essentially dead. His soul is trapped in the mirror, and his body is now being possessed by a mirror creature. It's a creepy ending to a creepy episode. Now we're moving over to the next episode, Attack of the Mutant. Now Attack of the Mutant is an interesting episode, split into 2 episodes actually, because it's a really long one. But essentially it's about this evil cartoon comic book character that comes out of comic book, literally, and starts messing with this kid who loves his comic series. Now this kid on the right there, the chubby little kid, he ends up coming face to face with this comic book villain and having to defeat him. Now the way that he defeats the comic book villain is by convincing the villain that he is his arch nemesis, Elastic Boy. And he also convinces and tricks the villain into turning himself into acid, basically, because acid is the only thing that can destroy Elastic Boy. So this is how the episode starts to wrap up. You think that the little kid has defeated the villain by turning him into acid, and everything's great. But then at the end of the episode, it is revealed that he has actually turned himself into Elastic Boy from the comic books. And why is this demented? I mean, he's a superhero. But look at the end of the episode. Look at how he's dressed. Look at what has happened to this little boy. Essentially, he's no longer the same little boy, because he says this really creepily.
Stretch it!
So essentially, the implication is that he is no longer the same character, and the same little boy. He's a cartoon character being possessed. It's creepy. So now we're moving on to an episode I love, and I know a lot of you love it, Night of the Living Dummy Part 3. Now, Night of the Living Dummy is just a classic Goosebump character. So he is an evil ventriloquist dummy, and in this particular episode, there are these 2 little kids, and their father's a ventriloquist, and they have to look after their geeky cousin. But obviously, the ventriloquist dummy, Slappy, comes to life and starts causing mayhem, and it's just a horrible night for them. They get completely hounded by Slappy. And because this is the last episode of Night of the Living Dummy, they decide to destroy Slappy. The kids don't kill him, but he ends up getting zapped by thunder and lightning and blown up into pieces. And that's the end of Slappy. And you think that's the way it should end. It's a happy ending. But then at the end of the episode, when the 2 main characters are saying goodbye to their cousin, his neck twists around and contorts. It's really freaky. Like, look at this. He's not human. And so the horrible implication to this episode is that at some point during the night, he was turned into an evil puppet creature, and he's essentially dead. His insides are, he's dead. It's messed up. It's probably one of the most dementing endings ever. God. Now, the next episode is called Attack of the Jack-O-Lanterns. It's one of my favorite episodes. It's about these two little kids who love the hell out of Halloween. They love dressing up for Halloween, but they end up getting bullied by these two other kids constantly and scared. They always get scared by these two other kids. But look, they decide to get some good old-fashioned revenge on these two kids, and they end up having some help from these two other kids. So there's 4, 5, 6, there's 6 kids at the moment who are in this episode. And so these two other kids are like, hey, you should get some revenge on those bullies and trick them on Halloween. Look, why don't you invite them out to trick or treat with you, and we'll surprise you and we'll scare them. And so they invite them to go trick or treating, and they get the bullies to come with them, and then they actually get harassed by these big pumpkin creatures out of nowhere. And the pumpkin creatures end up forcing the kids to be in sort of a trick or treat purgatory where they have to trick or treat forever and endlessly go to houses and collect candy. And these pumpkin creatures are freaky. Now they end up telling the kids that they can never leave and that they have to stay with them forever. And they end up scaring the hell out of the kids. I mean, these pumpkin creatures, they send laser bolts out of their fingers, they blow stuff up, they breathe fire out of their mouths, and they end up scaring the kids. But it turns out the pumpkin creatures are the two kids, after all, the kids that said that they would help scare the hell out of the bullies. But then it's revealed in a bigger twist that these two little kids are actually aliens, and it's just really whack. It's a really strange episode. But at the end of the episode, the alien creatures who are good, they're saying, hey, look, we really got them. We're gonna come back next year, and everything's gonna be fine. And you think this is it's a weird episode, but it's ended in a really nice way. But the implication at the end of the episode, what these aliens turn around and say, is so demented. It's so demented. Oh my God. It freaked me out as a kid. It freaked me out. Because essentially, these two alien creatures, they explain that they eat humans. And that next year they're gonna come back.
But I wouldn't eat all that candy. It might fat you up. And we will be back next year. 2 feet again. Happy Halloween.
And these two alien creatures, they leave. See, this is them. This is the last shot of the episode. They leave after telling these kids that they're gonna eat them later. And it's just a really freaky ending to an episode. It's essentially, it's the grimmest ending to a kid's show I've ever seen. That's how it ends. Now, the final one on the list is called Calling All Creeps. Now, Calling All Creeps is a great episode. It's such a weird one, but it's essentially about this little kid who always gets bullied at his school. And he's going to sabotage the school newsletter by saying that anyone who's a creep should call his bully, should call this girl he hates, right? And it's a basic premise, but it ends up backfiring on him, and she ends up putting his name and his number in this advertisement. So this kid ends up getting completely hounded by creeps. He gets called up by these people who go, hey, we're the creeps, we're gonna come and get you, when are we gonna meet? But it ends up in a weird plot twist that this kid he's getting hounded by the creeps, but it ends up that the main bullies, end up being the creeps. And the creeps are these shape-shifting alien creatures, and they, for some reason, believe that this nerdy little kid is their leader because he was calling them, basically. And they recruit him, and they want him to help them dominate the planet by turning everybody else into a creepy, shape-shifting alien. And they put this poison into into these cookies, right? And they want the kids to eat them so they can turn them all into these aliens, these monsters. And right at the end of the episode, our main character has the opportunity to save all the kids, to tell them, don't eat the cookies, please don't eat the cookies. But they all start picking on him, they start bullying him, they call him the rat, Runny the rat. They even go as far to throw a cupcake at him, and he says this really coldly. He says this.
I just wanted to say, when Enjoy the cookies.
And they all eat the cookies. And of course they turn into these creepy alien creatures. And it's just a really, really weird ending, because essentially the kid who's getting bullied, he decides to just take it out on everybody. It's actually a really demented ending to an episode. And right at the end of the episode, he eats a cookie. He turns into a creature as well. He turns into a creep. He turns into one of these aliens. And he says really awfully,
You can't beat him.
if you can't beat him, join him. And it's so messed up. But look, I love Goosebumps. Goosebumps will always be one of my favorite shows. Yeah.